to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod.
Danielle, you are the queen of shout-outs. In our first episode, you were shouting out Tara. You were shouting out Caitlin Clark. I think with so much going on in these past couple weeks, we should do some rapid-fire shout-outs to get us started. How does that sound?
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, but I want to go first because there's someone very special we need to shout out first, and that is Melvin Alexander Black. Melvin created our intro and outro music for us, and it sounds amazing.
I am literally obsessed with it.
I didn't give Melvin any background on what we wanted. I just said, we have this women's sports podcast. Can you take a listen? Can you create something for us? And I really wanted to tell him that I wanted it to sound like we were going to like a really fun basketball game. And I didn't. And what we got sounds exactly like it.
Yeah, it's perfect. I started listening to his stuff on Spotify, knowing that he was going to create something for us. And I was getting super excited because I just knew he was going to know the vibe we were going for. So huge shout out to Melvin.
Yes. So you can follow Melvin on Spotify at Melvin Alexander Black and on Instagram at Melvin Alexander Black. Who do you want to shout out first?
My first shout out goes to Sabrina Ionescu. She will be competing against Steph Curry in the 3-point contest during NBA All-Star Weekend, which is very exciting. More to come as we get closer to that date.
I'm excited to dive into that a little bit because I have strong feelings about it. My next shout out is to Jess Smith. She is the new president for the Golden State WNBA team. Very cool to see. And I'm really curious to see what their team name is going to be. Any guesses, Danielle?
I do not. Golden State Warriors is the men, but typically the WNBA teams do not go off of that. So I have to think about that one. I don't have any guesses right now, but I am still upset that they're not starting a team in Denver. I guess we'll have to give it to them. Just excited to see the WNBA expanding. Do you have any guesses?
Maybe the Golden Gals? No,
I really hope not. Let's take us back 80 years, Carolyn.
Okay, you next.
Okay, next up is my shout out for Brittney Griner. Her jersey is going to be retired next month at Baylor. She had an incredible career at Baylor University. She played under Kim Mulkey, who is now at LSU, and she has been playing in the WNBA for a few years now and is on the Phoenix Mercury. So very well deserved. Excited for her on that. So shout out Brittney.
My next shout out is to Chloe Kim. Chloe Kim is a snowboarder who won gold in the Super Pipe at the 2024 X Games in Aspen this year. She is now the first woman to land a 1260 in a snowboard half pipe competition. That is 3.5 full rotations.
Wow. Have you seen how large those half pipes are?
So I've actually been on a half pipe, and I think you have too. And I try to go up the side just a little bit, and I'm really just in the middle.
And I feel like we've been on smaller ones. I think at Copper Mountain here in Colorado, they have an Olympic sized one. And I look at it, and there is no way in hell I would go near that thing.
No.
And they're just so steep. So, wow, Chloe Kim, you go, girl.
Who's your next shout out?
So I'm going to shout out a bunch of teams. It's just been so exciting over the past couple of weeks to see all these upsets in NCAA women's basketball. My dad and sister, Carly, were at the ND versus UConn, ND being Notre Dame UConn game last week. That was just a super exciting game watching Notre Dame beat UConn, UConn was the higher ranked team. And my dad and sister Carly just said the atmosphere was incredible. And then as the week went on, more upsets happened. Mississippi State beat LSU.
Crazy.
Then Oklahoma beat Kansas State, number 2 in the nation, and Oklahoma was not ranked. Oregon State beat CU Boulder, and USC just beat Stanford. And Juju Watkins, who we got to see a few weeks ago, we talked about on the pod in a few episodes, 51 points.
That's insane. And I was going to say that I can't believe it, but after seeing her play, I can believe it. And I don't think that's going to be her last 50-point plus game.
She is just really incredible to watch, and it's going to be exciting to watch her throughout her career. And she was just lights out. you know, when you're in that flow state and you just feel unconscious. That's what I used to call it when you couldn't miss.
Yes.
She was unconscious.
She was just dribbling over half court and then saw her shot and taking it. It was really cool.
It was. And her interviews after the game were really cute. One of the announcers were saying Caitlin Clark who, and Juju's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Still respect. She has respect for other players in the game. But wow, and she is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year and years to come.
Yeah, and I think these upsets are just so good for women's basketball because in the past, it was UConn always winning everything. There was no questions, especially if it was a higher seed playing a lower seed. You could almost fill out your March Madness bracket and just go by number, and that is not
I never
the case.
like to believe that, but people would say that and it would drive me insane. But I understand where you were going. UConn won how many national championships in a row, and these teams were not getting beat. So yes, it is great to see all these upsets starting at the very beginning of the year in November. It's been feeling like March Madness since the start of the season, and you and I have been loving watching all these games and all these upsets. So I really do think it's great for the game, and excited to continue to watch through February. And then before we know, it's going to be March Madness.
Yeah, and that March Madness bracket is going to be messy, and I cannot wait.
Same.
Let's transition to the highlight reel for the week.
Let's do it.
February is Black History Month, so let's lead with a highlight to celebrate Black history. And let me be very clear, Black history is U.S. history, it is human history, and we are going to speak about some really amazing Black women in sports over the years. So the first story that I want to highlight is Tidye Pickett and Louise Stokes. Tidye Pickett and Louise Stokes were women's track and field stars. They were the first Black women to qualify for the Olympics back in 1932. So both women qualified in 1932 for the Los Angeles Games. They were getting ready to compete, and in the last second, they were replaced by two other women on the team who ran slower in the 4x100 relay but happened to be white, and the two were removed from the team in 1932.
I just cannot even imagine what feelings would be going through me to know that I beat someone, and just because the color of my skin was being replaced by someone else who was clearly not as talented as I was.
Yeah. And they weren't saying that, right? Like, they weren't overtly saying, like, you're not going to be in because we're going to choose the two white women. But it was so
but
clear.
That's why it was happening.
And it was definitely not based on merit, because if it was, they would be in. So they continue to run, which is amazing. And they continue to want to represent the United States. And they qualified again. And this time it was in 1936 when the Olympics were held in Berlin. This is a really interesting time in history because this is prior to World War II. Adolf Hitler is the chancellor in Germany, and they all decide, along with 16 other Black athletes, that they are going to compete for the United States in Berlin. These women are in their early 20s. They are young. Segregation is still very legal in the United States. And Adolf Hitler is spewing hatred. And they decide, like, oh, we're going to get on a boat and we're going to go show everyone who we are and that we're not inferior. And that's exactly what they did.
It just shows that it's so much more than the sport or the game. They were proving to the world that Black athletes can be just as successful, do just the same things as their white counterparts. And the bravery that it took for these individuals to stand up for what they believed in and to show the world that, and to still not get the recognition they deserved is truly, I just really can't imagine what they were going through during that time.
So they were even experiencing overt racism from their teammates. Like, one of their teammates who they ran with, while they were sleeping on a train, she poured water, ice cold water, all over them. And that was like just a regular day. Yeah. And the Olympics, to me, nothing makes me feel more patriotic than the Olympics. And I think about these women, Tidye Pickett and Louise Stokes, how the U.S. was in that moment for them to still say, I'm going to go and represent my country, a country that most times treats me like I'm second class. I wish I knew their names earlier. So they go over there. Pickett was the first African-American woman to compete in the Olympics. Unfortunately, she broke her foot on the first hurdle, but she still was the first African-American woman to compete in the Olympics. And she paved the way where African-American women could compete, and eventually they went on to win, and now we see African American women, Black women winning all the time. So there's a PBS special called Olympic Pride, American Prejudice that you can find on YouTube if you're super nerdy like me and want to learn all about the 18 athletes who attended the 1936 Olympics, and will highlight more Black history throughout the month. Danielle, what is your highlight for the week?
I want to highlight the women's Olympic Marathon Trials. As I said last week, they were running on Saturday, February 3rd, and it was really fun to watch. First of all, 20 of the runners who competed are mothers, which being a mother in itself is a feat. I am not a mother, but these women are incredible to me. So that's one thing. Two, do you know when women were able to legally start running marathons?
Well, we just had our story about Tidye, Pickett, and Louise Stokes. So was it around that time?
It was later. Women could start running marathons in 1972.
Oh my gosh. Why so late?
Men believed women weren't strong enough or capable enough to compete in the marathon, so they didn't let them. And before 1972, women were sneaking into marathons and dressing as men. And then when they would start running, people would notice that they were women and try to like rip them off the course. So then in 1972, they opened races up, Boston Marathon being the first one, to having a women's field for the race.
Wow.
It wasn't until 1984 that women could run the marathon in the Olympics.
Wow.
Yes. So 14 years later, they could finally be recognized in the Olympics for the marathon.
Okay, so let me get this straight. They couldn't run in the Olympics till 1984. Now we have women who are not only running in the Olympic trials, but they are having kids and then running in the Olympic trials. That is a very short turnaround to do some amazing, amazing stuff.
Yeah, it truly is. I was upset that Molly Seidel earlier this week announced over social media that she was injured and had to drop out of the trials. So I really hope that she gets better.
Yeah, that was hard to watch, her announcement. The Olympics is so difficult because it only happens every 4 years. And so to see something she was training for the last 4 years to be taken down by an injury that just happened to be close to when the trials were is really upsetting.
It really is. Emma Bates, another athlete I follow and ran Chicago this past year, also had qualified for the Olympic trials, and she had to announce a few months ago that she also had to drop out because of her injury. You could just see the emotions and how hard it is for these athletes. Of course, if I get injured and I'm just training for fun, recreational, I get super upset and it plays with me mentally. I can't imagine being an elite athlete and working that hard and not being able to get in. So wishing them a speedy recovery. The U.S. had 3 spots, top 3 if they met the requirements time, which was 2:26:50. If they met that, they would get into the Olympics.
So not only do they have to win the race and place in the top 3, but they also have to meet the Olympic trial time. Is that right?
Yes, there were a few athletes who also hit the Olympic trial time, but unfortunately they weren't in the top 3, so they will not be able to move forward.
Oh, that is hard.
Yes. But incredible to watch. As we saw, everyone starts in this huge group, and then you could just see the elite front group get smaller and smaller as the race goes on. So moving into the top 3 who will be moving forward and going to Paris this summer is Fiona O'Keefe, Emily Sisson, and Dakota Lindworm. Fiona O'Keefe, first of all, first time running a marathon.
Hold on. Her first time running a marathon.
Yes. So one of the ways you could qualify is through a half marathon. She ran a half marathon of 1:09:34. So an hour, 9 minutes, and 34 seconds, which got her into the Olympic trials.
That's a little crazy, though. Like, I'm going to get into the marathon by just running the half, and I know it's not just running the half.
Right. The marathon and the half marathon are very different races. So she had to run that very fast in order to qualify for the full. She ran the marathon for the first time during the trials, breaking the trials record,
Wow.
which was originally 2:25:38 set by Shailene Flanagan in 2012.
Well, she just proved me wrong.
Yeah, same. Truly incredible. And then a fun fact about third place, Dakota Lindworm. She walked on as a Division II athlete at Northern State University.
Walk-ons are having 2024 is the year of the walk-on.
Apparently. And now she's going to the Olympics. So great job to those three. Really looking forward to the Olympics. Watching them run in the trials is getting me even more excited. And I really just can't wait for all the sports, all the women to see them compete this summer in Paris.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, so what are your highlights for this week?
I want to highlight the two new pro leagues that are happening in women's sports. One is the Professional Women's Hockey League and the other, the Pro Volleyball Federation. The Professional Women's Hockey League, the PWHL, it kicked off in January. There are 6 teams: Minnesota, Boston, Ottawa, New York, Toronto, and Montreal, 3 in Canada and 3 in the United States. A lot of the people who play speak French, which I just think is so funny. I don't know why it's funny to me, but it is funny to me that there are so many French speakers because Canada produces some really great hockey players.
Oui, oui.
Oh my God.
You know, I took French.
Oh yeah. Hold on. What is the French that you know, Danielle, that you could take to Paris with you if we can go to the Olympics?
I forgot about this. Maybe they'll hire me. So my French name in middle school was Chandelle. So I would say, bonjour, je m'appelle Chandelle.
Oh my gosh. We're ready for the Paris Olympics.
J'adore Carolyn.
Oh wow. We are ready for the Paris Olympics. Please, someone hire us to cover it. Danielle can speak French.
I'll work on that.
Okay. All right. Back to professional women's hockey. So they are doing a really good job in their marketing. They are at NHL All-Star Weekend. Jonquel Jones, WNBA superstar, is coaching like their 3-on-3 teams.
Does she know anything about hockey?
I have no idea. Maybe she speaks French too.
Oh.
She's there coaching some of their 3-on-3 at the NHL All-Star Weekend. Sam Mewis, who recently retired from soccer, has been in some of the locker rooms announcing the lineups. Billie Jean King, famous tennis player, is involved at the very top and helping to grow their game. What I really like about this Professional Women's Hockey League is that they have a collective bargaining agreement, which pretty much ensures the health of the players long term, make sure that they're getting paid well, make sure they have everything that they need. And also it does a good job of ensuring the health of the league because they've had many iterations of some kind of professional women's hockey league. So I'm really hoping that this one sticks because they seem like they're doing some really great things on the back business end. On top of that, they are also drawing over 13,000 fans to some of their games. That is in their first month.
That's huge.
That's huge.
It's also really cool to see other athletes from other sports coming out, helping with the marketing, women empowering women. They know how important it is to all women's sports. So to see them coming out and helping with that, really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to realize that if someone's a fan at the Professional Women's Hockey League, it's not taking away from these other sports. It doesn't mean it's one less fan for the WNBA. It means that now people are both WNBA fans and they're Professional Women's Hockey League fans. So that's awesome to see. The Pro Volleyball Federation, in their first inaugural game between the Atlanta Vibe and the Omaha Supernovas, there were over 11,000 people there.
That's awesome, too.
So once again, we're showing that when women's sports occurs, people show up, people pay their money. When they put it on TV, people will watch. They have teams in Atlanta, Omaha, Orlando, Vegas, Columbus, Ohio, San Diego, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. I think we need to schedule a field trip to Omaha to go see them play.
You know, I love Nebraska.
You do love Nebraska.
That's a great point. I've never gone to a sporting event and been upset that I was there. I always have a great time. And especially when supporting women's sports, I am down to do it. And I think everyone else should if they're in the area and able to go see one.
Yeah. And I really think if you live in any of these areas and can go watch a live game, it's the best way to become a fan because you see someone you like, you see a team, you like the way they play together, you like the coach, and then you can just become invested.
Definitely. And just that atmosphere. I mean, 13,000, 11,000.
Yes, and I think one of the big things also is creating community. The reason why I like to be part of so many women's sports is because of the community that it creates, and to be a fan is also to be part of a really great community of like-minded people.
Yeah.
So congratulations to the Professional Women's Hockey League and the Pro Volleyball Federation for getting started. Let's transition now into the deep dive for this week. All right, Danielle, what are we deep diving into this week?
So this week, there's been a lot of talk about the WNBA free agency, and I think we should talk about that, given there's been a lot of trades going on.
The free agency is just generally confusing to me. So can you provide a little bit of background about it?
Yes. So there's two main groups. There's unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents. Unrestricted free agents can speak to and sign with any team they want. So basically, once their contract is up with one team, they're free to negotiate with any team they want and sign.
No rules.
Correct. And then you have your restricted free agents who can speak to and sign with any team they want, but they can have the offer matched by their prior team.
So if their prior team offers a match that's greater than or equal to, then they stay with that prior team.
Correct. And then you have core designation. So a team can decide to use core designation to have exclusive rights to negotiate a contract with a player. This would revoke a player's unrestricted status.
They could be in an unrestricted free agency, but if the organization says we're going to core you, then they have exclusive negotiating rights.
Correct. It's similar to how the NFL uses the franchise tag, if that helps kind of clarify what core designation is.
That means nothing to me, but I'm sure it will mean something to our listeners.
Yes, but the difference is in the WNBA, the core designation only lasts 1 year.
And are there any limits? Can they just like core people all the time?
No. So as of 2024, they can only do this twice for a player's career. So you have to be mindful of how you are using it. Also, any player given the core designation is automatically offered a 1-year Supermax offer per the terms of the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement.
So we were talking about collective bargaining agreements earlier with the Professional Women's Hockey League. This is a good example of how a CBA, collective bargaining agreement, can work in the player's favor.
This year, top name, Brianna Stewart, was playing for the New York Liberty. Her contract was up, used the core designation on her, so she will be staying with New York Liberty for at least 1 more year.
So I can imagine, and I'm not sure if this is how it was for Brianna Stewart, but I can imagine for some players, getting cored is probably not their favorite if they were wanting to go.
So I think from a money standpoint, it works in their favor, but if they don't like the culture on the team, that could be against, and they don't really have negotiating rights after that. If the team decides to use the core designation, they need to stay there for another year.
Very interesting. Okay, so what are some of the interesting things that you've seen so far?
There's a lot of talk about it right now. I think it hypes up the WNBA a little more. It gives players an option to choose the teams they want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. They get drafted, obviously, out of college to a certain team that might not be their first choice. So after their contract's up, they have some negotiating rights for themselves that they can choose where they want to go and negotiate with different teams. So I like that, and I think it creates just overall excitement. One of the players that I'm really excited about, Skylar Diggins-Smith. I used to be a huge fan when she was at Notre Dame. She's been playing for Phoenix Mercury. Recently just signed a 2-year deal with the Seattle Storm. One of the reasons why I'm excited about this is she's reuniting with Jewel Lloyd, who was a freshman. Skylar was a senior at Notre Dame. So they played together in 2012, 2013. And I just really think it will be fun to watch them reunite and play together now.
That will probably be a better fit culturally for her too, especially having a teammate that she's played with before.
Yes, I think it will be good. So I'm excited to see that duo. Have you seen any players that have been traded that you're interested or excited about?
Well, there's been so many things that have been happening. I think what I'm most interested in is that the core of the Liberty and the Aces is going to remain the same. So they're going to have the same players back. They were the 2 top teams, and it'll be very interesting to see how the other trades kind of affect the core of the Liberty and the Aces. I do have my eyes on the Sparks, though, because Kia Nurse is going from the Seattle Storm to the Sparks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Sparks also have the number 2 pick, the number 4 pick, and the number 8 pick in the 2024 draft. So I feel like they can make some really big moves. Receiving Kia Nurse, it could be really good for the Sparks if they play this right. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, just because I really like this player, is Natasha Cloud was on the Washington Mystics, and now she'll be with the Phoenix Mercury. And her defensively is just so amazing, and the way she can pass and create. So I just am excited to see her in Phoenix and see what she can do.
I am sad she'll be leaving Elena Deladon, but it seems like it's going to be a good fit for her, so I am happy for her about that. The other player that still has some unknowns is Candace Parker. She missed most of the season last year due to injury. Will she re-sign with the Aces? Will she come back? I don't know. You know I love Candace Parker, so also just very curious to see what happens there.
Can you promise that if she announces a retirement, you will read your letter to her on the air?
As a tribute to her
Yes.
incredible career? Yes.
Maybe
I'll do
we're
that.
not there yet. I think she's got a little bit more in her, but I'm glad we have it on record.
Yeah, maybe.
No, you said yes. Definitely a lot more to come with this free agency within the WNBA. It always shakes things up, makes things a little bit more interesting. I really like the cryptic tweets and people like subtweeting and no one knows where they're going. So it'll be fun.
Yes, I agree. So Carolyn, as we wrap up today, what are you looking forward to in the coming week?
Softball season is here. I'm so excited. It's back. I can't wait to watch. There's so many great games. The first games that are going to be played will be on February 8th. I especially have my eyes on Duke, who is the number 9 seed coming into the season, is playing number 1 Oklahoma at the Puerto Vallarta College Challenge. So I think I'm just going to be watching college softball all weekend, and
I'm excited.
Cannot wait.
That'll be a lot of fun.
What are you looking forward to this week?
So I've talked about this before on the podcast. My dad is a huge UConn fan. We're South Carolina fans. Well, guess what? South Carolina is playing UConn women's basketball this Sunday, February 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
We love it.
I am excited. I'm sure the trash talk will start soon. Between us and my dad.
Yes. And usually I try to get your dad to kind of like bet on something where I can somehow get him in a South Carolina t-shirt. So we might have to propose that. I don't know.
Oh, we should do that. Whoever wins, we get bragging rights and can send the opposite person a t-shirt to wear. I like that.
Yes. Me putting on a UConn t-shirt, though, my skin may melt. I don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think I have to worry too much.
You never know. But as you know, I'm rooting for Gamecocks. My sisters, on the other hand, probably rooting for UConn with my dad.
I don't know. Carly might be a new South Carolina fan. I think we may
have her to decide. But really looking forward to that game for personal reasons, really. And also, I think it will be a great matchup. So to see those two teams play will be fun.
It'll be really fun and a good game no matter what. All right. That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.